Welcome.
Happy Friday.
Yes, welcome to the Friday 4. This is episode 9, or Big 9. And I'm Tony with Phillips Fishworks.
And I'm Kara with Phillips Fishworks.
What are the 4 things we are talking about today, Kara?
We are in expansion season. Whoop, whoop.
It's number 1.
Yes. Number 2, we're going to take a look at our new logo.
Thank you, Haley. Number 2 logo.
Number 3, fish eating all of my micro creatures.
Yikes, that
no.
sounds like an email is going to get answered in that segment.
Very much. And then number 4,
Yep.
Scuds are always to blame. So with that being said,
Do they ever get a fair trial?
I don't think they do. I really don't.
Mm.
I really don't. But
yeah, number 4, Scuds are to blame for everything.
Yeah.
They truly are.
Yeah.
Believe me. We'll get to it.
Let's jump right in to number 1. So, expansion season. What does that mean to you, Tony?
Well, let me get to my notes because I honestly can't remember. Everyone knows we've got these tower systems. It's in this room anyways where we're sitting at now. It's 100-gallon on the bottom, 2 50-gallon tubs on top. They're all connected by a pump in the bottom, pumping to the top, then water falling to the next one, then to the next one. So it's a cycle.
Quite the operation.
Quite the operation. So the next part of our expansion is we're outfitting on top of every tower is a 50-gallon tub. In that tub, well, it's actually a barrel. That barrel is water storage to bring up to temperature from the filter, goes into the water storage. And then if we want to do a water change or flush the system, we can crack the valve on the bottom. It drains out about 50 gallons. And then we can crack the valve on top and it puts 50 gallons back in. So it's like a semi-automated water change.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing is the way we have it set up, we can walk away from it and it can do all of its functions. Nothing's going to overflow. No pumps are going to run dry. It's kind of like a fail-safe because if I'm running around and, getting hoses out and things are overflowing all day long, that's a problem. So this system is semi-automated. I can walk away from it. Nothing's going to overflow. And I really thought it would be done to show you guys today a little more detailed, but we've run into some snags. Like I was telling Kara as I was designing it, there's something I'm not quite thinking of, and I ran into a few hiccups, but I've now got to fix those. But we're always fixing problems.
Right. Everything's a work in progress.
So the next phase in expansion after the plumbing in this room is finally done is we've got to bring more electrical into this room. I'm referring to the Scud-free room. We expanded into here several months ago, but I've still got lights and pumps running on extension cords, and that's a big no-no for obvious reasons. Right. So we've got to bring power in. Again, I ran into an issue. We've kind of maxed out this back warehouse. This was part of a warehouse which was never meant to have a lot going on in here. At the time it was built, it was just parts storage. There was some fluorescent lights over above, and there's like one outlet in this whole giant warehouse, back portion of this warehouse. There's like 3, but the other one's 40 feet that way. So we've got to bring power in actually from the breaker box. That's the next phase. And then the final phase of growth for the springtime, which will round out before summer, is the greenhouse. We've talked about that, so I don't really want to go into that right now. But that's hopefully going to bring us up into spring, early spring, mid-spring. It'd be great if by kind of like May, June, we were making some real headway on there. I don't want to, I tend to kind of like go way too far in my head in the future. But so that's expansion.
Yeah.
And that's what's to come.
Yeah. We also want to revamp the Scud room.
Oh, yeah.
The OG room.
Yeah, probably even before we go into the greenhouse, kind of right after the electrical phase. Hopefully the plumbing and electrical will be officially done in the Scud-free room in like the next week. I mean, we're rounding this up right now. So hopefully by the next Friday 4, that's done. And I can actually give you a little tour of the plumbing system and the electrical, which there's really not much to look at the electrical, but the plumbing system and how all that's hooked up will be something interesting to look at. Hopefully by next Friday that's done. So we've got about a week till that time, and I think that's possible. And then right after that, before jumping into the greenhouse, the next thing is kind of revamping some things in the old Scud room. We've got quite a few systems that are not actually even running right now. There's no pumps in the bottom pumping up. They've been unplugged, and they're more or less um, just old systems that were really high nutrient, a lot of mold, lots of they really needed cleaned out. It was before I was on to this whole water change system, and they've really become clogged up, we'll say, is I think a good way to refer to it. Also, similar type of problem. I need to run some more power distribution in there. I need to bring some power from the breaker box into that room for lights and pumps, and also the same thing, having kind of a redistribution of water for the water change systems. And I would like to probably have a kind of reallocate the space a little bit. We've got scuds kind of everywhere. I'd like to make an area for like just kind of snails only. Number 2.
We've got a new logo. Have you
Yes.
seen it?
Have you seen
Have
it?
you been to our website?
Have you been to the website lately?
PhillipsFishworks.com.
Yeah, I think we needed a new logo. I've grown to love our old logo. Some of you don't even know what it is. If you ask someone who doesn't know anything about aquatic isopods, it looks like a bug on its back that's like dead. It's like the perfect logo for like a pest control service. Pest control. Like Phillips Fish Works, dead bug on its back. What that actually is, for those of you who don't realize what it is, it's like half, like if you were to look at a aquatic isopod from the top, its legs, left legs and right legs, but then you cut it in half vertically.
Yeah.
Sorry, horizontally.
Yes.
Cut it in half.
Yes.
Cut it in half horizontally, and you're seeing like half of its legs.
Half of it, yeah.
So it's not something on its back with its legs pointing up. It's something you're looking from the top down, and it's missing half of it because Phillips Fish Works is on half, and on the top are the legs. But if you look at it, it almost does look like something on its back dead, even with the antenna and everything. And it's like the little point you're seeing that looks like the face is actually like half the head. Like, yeah, it is.
It has done its duty. It has served
It's done its duty.
time.
I have not enjoyed it the whole time, to be honest, but I grew to accept it and love it. And then I kind of did like it a little bit, but I never pushed. I mean, I've got like a stack of like 300 stickers of it, and I just hate them. I've thrown them in.
Still have all right. I think maybe we have 296 of them. Still.
Yeah, and my sister had a bunch of I got a bunch of magnets made of it, really nice, I don't know what you call them.
But when you're not feeling it, you're not.
Yeah, but I don't even want to put them on sale for the website. Maybe they'll be for sale as the old logo.
Right, the OG.
99 cents a sticker. So we were due for a change, and this is the new logo, clearly a Scud, and our main character is Scud.
Yes.
And big shout out to Haley.
Good job, Haley.
One of Kara's friends, and I guess my friend too.
One of our friends, yeah. Wow. Sorry, Haley.
She's not my friend. You're not my friend. I'm using you for the logo. So yeah, one of our friends, Haley.
Yeah.
We were at a New Year's Eve shindig, and we were just talking about it, and as we were talking, she's dook. How's this like?
Putting the magic together, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. So I'm excited to get some stickers made. Maybe we'll even put it on a shirt.
Yeah, we'll get some merch going.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this logo, and I hope you all like it too. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to do that thing that they do on YouTube, let me know in the comments what you think of the new logo. And what did you think that old logo looked like? Did anyone out there question what it really was?
Right.
Because everyone I showed it to and asked, they were confused.
This is true.
Only every single time. And at that point, I had already plastered it everywhere and had stickers made. Yeah. And we paid money to have that made. And the 6 logos before that we paid money to have made were so awful that the one that looked okay to me.
Right.
And this one from Haley, she didn't charge me anything.
Thank God.
And
for Haley.
I love it. So her and I are going to get together on some stickers
Yeah.
and have a whole like line of 10 stickers made.
Yes.
So that's coming.
Yeah. It's in the works.
So new
In the
logo.
Phillips
Check it out if
Fishworks.
you haven't seen it. Number 3, we're
Number
moving right
3,
along.
Yes. Fish eating all my micro creatures. So we've got an email here from Cliff. Hi, I've had aquariums for a few years. I typically had a cichlid tank with no plants and just sand. I recently set up a 30-gallon tank with dirt, sand, and a bunch of plants. I've got a lot of rocks in there and hiding places. In all honesty, it's actually overcrowded. I've thrown in some live stuff from the pond before, but I didn't see anything floating around in it. I currently have 4 clown loaches in there and expect to bring it to 6. And then I'm thinking of getting a couple Central American cichlids, and that may be it, but I'm in no rush to get those. In my fantasy, I'm loading up my shopping cart with $180 worth of one of everything you have. However, I'm told the clown loaches will eat all these things. I am not looking to get them fancy food. I am looking to create an ecosystem for the tank. What do you recommend I purchase?
Well, first of all, I love that Phillips Fishworks is in your fantasy. I think Phillips Fishworks should be in everyone's fantasy. I mean, that's all I can say about that. Email done. Just kidding.
Gosh.
Okay, so yeah, your clown loaches are going to definitely eat up a bunch of that kind of stuff. If you were to buy some, if you've got one of everything, if you were to put some Daphne in there, they're going to munch on the Daphne. If you put Scuds in there, they're going to want to eat your Scuds. However, so whoever said, yeah, you're told your clown loaches will eat all those items. So maybe you've showed someone your shopping cart and they're like, no, 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 no. So clown loaches, they're gorgeous fish. Cichlids, gorgeous. She was just telling me the other day, like her favorite part of going to like Gerber's, or we've got some cool local fish stores, is all the big beautiful cichlids in there. They've got some really nice display fish in there, and yeah, gorgeous to look at. So the clown loaches are going to get pretty big, and they're pretty much going to be on the bottom a lot, and they're going to be rooting around looking for stuff. And maybe you're looking at your tank for 10, 20 minutes, a half hour, especially in the beginning, maybe hours you're glued to it. But when you're not there, those fish are pretty much covering every square inch of that tank looking for food. So the reality is, if fish are in the tank at all, that's a predator, and you're going to need a very dense habitat for those creatures to grow population. Now you say it's actually overcluttered. So there is a very dense habitat, and especially as those fish get bigger, they're going to kind of navigate certain areas. And if you've got rock piles or lots of plants, it says a lot of rocks in there in hiding places. If you put Scuds in there, or any of our packages, those Scuds, they're going to get to those hiding places, and over time they will grow a population. If you've got a pile of rocks and areas with plants that those bigger fish aren't really getting into, then they're gonna the Scuds will have no problem hiding and having a place to repopulate. And at that point, they're going to help establish that ecosystem, or what do you say here? Looking to create an ecosystem for the tank. Right. So, in those high traffic areas where fish are moving, that's always going to be kind of stirred up with the water current, and the waste and uneaten fish food is going to kind of congregate in those cracks and in those crevices, the same place those Scuds are going to be congregating. So, that kind of does make sense why Scuds would work in that situation. So as those populations grow in hiding, yes, some are going to get eaten, but there will always be something. And so why I really wanted to bring it up, what do we call it? Number 3, fish eating all of my micro creatures. So Daphnia moina, you're not going to be able to really create a sustained population in there, because the fish, Daphnia and moina aren't really going to be hiding down in those cracks and crevices or down in the substrate. So those will all get eaten up. The Scuds will, however, hide in those cracks and crevices and get a population. Will you be seeing, like if you see one of my videos where you see all the Scuds crawling around on the rocks, or the aquatic isopods crawling around on the rocks, You will not see that if there are a bunch of clown loaches cruising around in that tank. The aquatic isopods probably won't establish a really big population in there with those fish in there. I think they're going to do better in a isopod only tank. But the scuds, I think, will do fine. But you're not going to see them crawling around on the rocks because they're going to be hiding from the monsters that are trying to eat them. But they will be there. They will be doing some kind of job behind the scene. They will be eating up some of that fish food and things that get lodged in those cracks and crevices that the fish aren't really getting to anyways. That's what the scud's going to be eating on and surviving. And if you remove those fish, again, all of a sudden, oh, hey, they are there. And if left fishless, they'll grow a really big population, and then you put the fish back or whatever, and they'll eat them up as snacks. So I think there's a real benefit. I wouldn't worry about Moina and Daphnia. They're not going to be able to establish a big population. Now, some of our cultures like leafy bugs, bag of leaves, those all get a little bit of Moina and a little bit of Daphnia put in them usually. At least Daphnia or Moina. They get one of each. As long as we've got plenty of both, they're going to get both. Now, they will survive in there for a little while, they'll get eaten and they'll be gone. But the scuds that come in those cultures will go down. There's also little seed shrimp, little copepods. They're real teeny tiny, look like little specks of pepper. Those are going to establish themselves in there as well. So definitely worth getting if you're interested in that part of the ecosystem. You could also get the scud balls. Those are come with that same mix of creatures. And just scuds outright. There's the 50 pack and the 200 pack or 500 pack. Those would help establish that population of scuds as well. And sometimes people get worried, and you're going to see later when scuds get blamed for everything, you may be worried about the scud population getting huge and eating all your plants and destroying everything. Well, with some clown loaches in there, that's virtually impossible.
Perfect.
So I hope that answered your question, Cliff.
Yeah, we appreciate you letting us answer that on here.
Getting one of everything, just to clarify one more time, with clown loaches, I wouldn't recommend getting the aquatic isopods because I think they're going to get eaten and not thrive. I wouldn't recommend going the Moina or Daphnia cultures because those will not last long either.
Yeah.
But anything with the leaf cultures, if you like the leaf litter, the scuds, I think if you've got cover like you say you do, they will. Because just an example, I've had many tanks with all my tanks with the guppies and everything like that in the scud room, there's scuds in there still. And if you were to stick a basket of the seed pods in there and leave them in there a while, you could take that basket out, run some water through it, and scuds would be coming out of those, even though there are, tons of guppies or platies or swordtails, depending on the tank, plenty of that in there to eat them up. So they, even in just a pretty barren environment, they are able to find some places to hide. So yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the email. And if any of you out there want to send in emails with questions, if it can, help other people out, sometimes we will read it on the air.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And while we've talked about some little creatures getting eaten up by your fish, that kind of segues into a couple more emails before we go on to our next topic of scuds being the blame of everything. Glenn wants to know, what is the ideal temperature for scuds and Daphnia? What do you feed your scuds and Daphnia? What is your take on copepods? Do you know where to get them? Yes, I know where to get them. If you're getting anything from me, bag of bugs, bag of leaves, scud balls, leafy bugs, scud-free leafy bugs, all are going to come with, in the mix of little creatures, there's going to be seed shrimp and copepods. Now, do I have exact numbers? No. So during our process of assembling those products, there's this stuff we call black dust. And what black dust is kind of as we're filtering out and sifting through stuff to get scuds, we end up, and in the scud-free cultures, it's not scuds we're sifting through, it's isopods and shrimp. But as we're sifting through like the seed pods and things, we end up screening out a lot of little, what we're calling black dust, which is actually just little detritus or more or less snail, scud, shrimp, or isopod waste that basically comes off. It's decaying, broken down seed pods and leaves. And in that, there's always a ton of seed shrimp and copepods. Just like all natural products, there is some varying if we're dishing out Scuds for one of these products, we're kind of measuring out the Scuds a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're referring to the seed shrimp and copepods, each one gets a little bit. So I don't have an exact number of what you'll get, but if you get one of these leaf cultures from us, you will end up having copepods and seed shrimp. So I'm a big proponent of them. So if you want copepods, if you get one of our leaf cultures, you'll get copepods. But I do not at this point have a copepod specific culture. What ideal temperature for Scuds and Daphnia? I've always kind of kept them at the same temperature, but turns out I think Daphnia sometimes like it a little cooler. So Scuds, I would say your low end would be in the low 50s, would be comfortable still. Now they're not necessarily going to be reproducing well at that, but they're going to be living. If you were in a cold climate and maybe you had your tank in a basement and your
Mm-hmm.
tanks got down to 50 degrees, that wouldn't kill them. The extreme would be like mid 80s, might be pushing it. 90 would be pretty hot. So comfort wise, keeping it around that mid 70s to upper 70s is great. They're going to reproduce really well. Daphnia, again, I've always kept them at those same temperatures. Now our system fluctuates between, in the winter, parts of it are as low as 65, but most of our system is right around 71, 72 right
Mm-hmm.
now in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
In the summer, those are going to rise up. Some of them in the summer are mid 70s. A lot of them, though, towards the hottest part of the summer is going to get around 78 to 80 degrees. So Daphnia, though, if you do some research on them, you're going to find out a lot. They kind of more like it towards 70. They get up in the mid 70s is, I think, great and fine. But once you start getting those upper 70s, there may be some reproductive. They may not like it that well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I've never really noticed, and we've had our Daphnia through summers here, so I'm not sure. I think they would have definitely been exposed to that 75 to 78 degree there without much incident. So, and at least in our experience with the Daphnia magna, we have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do some research, you'll see that 70 is kind of more ideal temperature for Daphnia. But again, you just have to mess around with that. What do you feed your Scuds and Daphnia? Here Scuds get a variety of things. So in all of our Scud cultures, in culturing tubs, we've got leaf litter, some seed pods, the sweet gum seed pods. Also, they're getting. I like to supplement some dry, or it's like dried seaweed that you buy for like aquarium use. Also, the little tank smoothie we saw on our website, that's like a powdered food you mix with boiling water, and that makes a gel base. You can cut that up and freeze it in little cubes, or it works in the fridge as well. So they like that. They're also eating lots of things that you can't really see, like little microorganisms. They like chewing on biofilm. They're also going to eat little microalgae. They love hair algae or filamentous algae. They're definitely going to eat on that type of stuff. So they're a big fan of algae. And what else? Any kind of fruit and veggie, they're going to like that. Blanch some broccoli or some spinach, blanch it, put it in there. Fruits like strawberries, bananas, cucumbers,
Green
any
beans.
kinds of green beans,
Yeah.
melons. Scuds are going to tear those up as well. As far as Daphnia go, the best thing's going to be like some kind of green water, whether that you're making that yourself or we've got a lot of options for green water here, but that green water is going to be best because it's free living in the environment. It's not contributing negatively to your water quality because it's alive. It's not rotting in the bottom like yeast or powdered algae that you buy offline. So that living green water is what they're going to eat in the wild, and that just is much better for them nutritionally. Plus, as they're consuming that green water, you can see in their digestive tract this little green trace, and you can actually see the cells inside of there in the microscope and watch it turn into mush inside of their guts, which is pretty fascinating.
Pretty cool,
yeah, pretty fascinating to look at. But if your fish eats that Daphnia that has all that green water being processed in it, then your fish is eating that living green algae as well, which the live food is good. And that veggie live green water inside that Daphnia does make that Daphnia more nutritious than a Daphnia that its gut is full of just yeast.
Yeah.
But yeast is not bad either. Yeast has got a lot of proteins in it. So what else will Daphne eat other than green water?
Mm-hmm.
They will eat bacteria, like bacteria blooms they can survive on.
Mm-hmm.
Other things they'll eat that's pretty common. People will take active yeast or baker's yeast with combination of different kinds of like rice flours, or there's all kinds of recipes online, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll mix that up into a cup, get it suspended in the water, and they will eat those yeast. What else? The dried powder, like spirulina powder or chlorella powder you're going to buy on eBay, that is a dead algae. So there's still nutritional value there, but it's not really going to be floating around in the water column very long. It's going to be down the bottom. It's going to be rotting. It's going to be adding negatively to your water quality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, and people report having trouble long term growing like generation after generation after generation of Daphnia and Moina on just yeast and powdered algae.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say, there is a video on YouTube I've seen. A guy, it's a great video. It's been out there for a very long time. It's got lots of good information on it. He's growing Daphnia in a 55-gallon tank, and he's got some recipe where he's putting in yeast and stuff every single, multiple times a week, and he's got some system where he's had that going like a year.
That's
But
cool.
also, at the tail end of the video, he does make a comment about going out like once a week to his pond and scooping up some pond water and dumping it in there. So it's possible that that is, you got this little pond outside. You've
Mm-hmm.
probably got a lot of different, maybe some green water naturally growing out there, algae's growing out there. So dumping that into there is probably also supplementing the Daphnia with some of those free living single cell algae.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that um, his success is only because that he's having that success. I'd say maybe in part with having some of that live algae, I would say contributes that to success. Because if you talk to most people, they'll have several generations on yeast or these powdered dry algae, but a lot of people report over time it's hard to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing to say about that, the reason it's so hard to keep up with is because the explosive exponential growth of Daphnia, as that population gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you
Mm-hmm.
start feeding more and more and more. And as you're feeding more of those foods that are decaying and breaking down because they're not suspended, it's just you end up overfeeding that dry powdered way too much. You just overfeed it. And the same things are happening with the live green water
Mm-hmm.
because you do have big booms and you have those creatures dying, breaking down, and going to waste. So I think that covers that pretty well. I would recommend green water if you can manage growing that. And if not, maybe try messing around with some of those live or those powdered algae and yeast. Speaking of Daphnia crashing and struggling, where it segues right into this next email from Brett.
It's like we had it figured out.
It's like we pick these emails and put them in a certain order ahead of time. That's not like us to plan that far ahead.
It's not like you to plan that far ahead.
Thank God she's here. Thank the Lord. Thank you for being here, Kara.
You're
I am not holding her against her will, I swear. Brett says, how much salt and how many milliliters of your green water fertilizer should you be adding per gallon of green water to make green water? I have tried doing this in 2-gallon mason jars with sprouts on the front, and I think I might be putting in too much. Should I then use green water to fill the entire jar and add Daphne or Moina to the jar? I did this process with a culture of Moina I got from you, and it doesn't seem to be doing well. I also tried this with a culture of Daphnia, and it was doing well. And now both colonies seem to be crashing. Story of my life, crashing Daphne and Moina. So just right off the top, by nature, Daphne and Moina both have very volatile, explosive, exponential growth. That's the biggest difficulty is managing population growth. Because there are lots of factors that go into their growth, like water temperature, food availability, water salinity, where's your salt, where's your mineral levels, all that goes into growth, how quickly they're going to grow. And, you can go from one day, it seems like there's a few in there. oh, cool. A week later, there's a ton in there. You're getting all excited. And then another week later, you're back to 2 because that growth went from now there's hundreds, now there's thousands, now there's 10,000.
Mhm.
And we're in a 2-gallon jar
Mhm.
and water quality went to crap immediately. You can have those same problems in a 10-gallon tank, a 20-gallon tank,
Yeah.
or a 55-gallon barrel. The same concept applies. But as you shrink down the volume of water,
Mhm.
it can be very difficult to grow Daphne and Moina in these 2-gallon jars, just right off the top. But, like you say here, uh, you tried it with Daphnia and it was going well. So I would say if it was going well, but then a short time later it wasn't, you probably just that volume of water, 2 gallons, a
Mhm.
2-gallon mason jar, that the water quality in there was probably tanking very quickly. It's probably going downhill very quickly. You've got lots of creatures. They're consuming a lot of green water. They're producing waste. They're also growing and dying. I
Mhm.
mean, Moina's lifespans are very, very short, anyways.
Yeah.
And Moina and Daphne, rather. Well, both. In some situations, they're only living a month or two, period.
Mhm.
So you do see massive growth, massive die off, and if you're not harvesting out, you're going to have a lot of probably low oxygen scenarios, um, low food very quickly, and then high nutrients, high ammonia as you have mass die-offs
Mhm.
of these creatures. As far as should I fill the entire jar with green water and then add Daphne and add Moina? You said you had luck with Daphne. I may have recommended that at one point, even in some videos. But at this point, I would say if you had a 2-gallon jar and you were wanting to try Daphne, I would recommend going to at least a 10-gallon tank if you have space for that. If
Yeah.
not, try it in a 2-gallon jar. I've raised Daphne in a 1-gallon jar before. You've just got to manage that population very closely. At this point, if let's say you're going to use a 2-gallon jar, I would fill that thing up like a quarter or a half of the way with water and then put a quarter in of the green water
Mhm.
and just use that green water as food for them. And then especially in that small jar size, you're going to want to do regular water changes. You're going to want to siphon some of the dead off the bottom for sure. You're just going to have to manage it very closely.
Yeah.
Here at the shop, we're doing our Moina cultures in 20-gallon longs, and we're doing our Daphnia in 50-gallon black tubs. And usually with the Daphnia, that's part of a tower system. So really, here, watch out. Really, that 50-gallon tub is part of a 200-gallon system.
Mhm.
So do you need that for your house? Probably, absolutely not. And what I mean by that
Yeah.
is, like, you don't want to produce that much Daphnia. We're selling,
Yeah.
50 to 100 Daphnia cultures a week. So we've got to really have a lot of Daphnia. So if we go out of stock on Daphnia, which happens every once in a while, we try really
Mhm.
hard to not let that happen.
Mhm.
That's because we've mismanaged something along the way and we've had some crashes. I mean, we're working very, very hard to come up with some kind of like system so we can have a regular
Yeah.
output of Daphnia, but we still are struggling with nailing down exactly like starting with this many in this
Mhm.
environment with
Mhm.
these variables and this amount of green water,
Mhm.
like we should have this kind of output. We still struggle with having exact science or a number there, and maybe in a scientific laboratory they've got that down, but we don't have that down quite yet. So don't feel bad if you're struggling. It is not as simple as maybe some lead you on to
Mhm.
believe, like Daphnia, food forever, free food forever. That could not be more from the truth.
Right.
But if you're wanting explosive, quick growth, and you've got a lot of fish to feed, Daphne and Moina are an awesome food. Plus, they're highly nutritious. They're great for conditioning fish to breed.
Mhm.
The small Moina and the baby Daphnia are great to feed little fry. So it's definitely worth investigating, but try not to get frustrated. So, 2-gallon mason jar, you're going to want to probably use the green water as food for them rather than starting a culture of Daphnia or Moina in the green water directly.
Mhm.
So if you make 2 gallons of green water, don't use that 2 gallons of green water to start the culture in. And lastly, how much salt and how many milliliters of fertilizer do you use for a gallon? It is 5 milliliters, and you could use 6 if you wanted a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I typically am using 5 milliliters of the algae fertilizer for
Mm-hmm.
1 gallon, and just a pinch of salt, like literally a pinch. It's like a 16th of a teaspoon, I think, is what a pinch technically is.
Mm-hmm.
But a little pinch. You don't have to measure it out so much. But if you were doing like just to multiply this out, if you're doing a 5 gallon bucket of green water, you're going to want to do 25 milliliters of algae fertilizer, and a little more in a pinch, like a big pinch of the salt. And the salt I like to use is simply a marine saltwater aquarium salt. So the same salt you're buying for your
Yes.
marine, you get it at a pet store. We don't sell it separately at this time on our website. Now, when I make a 5 gallon bucket of green water, typically I use a little more fertilizer than that 25. We'll use actually 30 milliliters of fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
Algae fertilizer. We sell the algae fertilizer on our website if you want to buy that separate.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a dry good. So if you only have dry goods in your shopping cart, you will not be charged the $5 insulated box charge if you're just buying the fertilizer.
Right. It'll just be your true shipping rate from us to you.
Yep. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Brett, I hope that answered that question. It can be, I understand your frustration sometimes. Anyone out there that has raised Daphnia moina, it can be extremely frustrating. It can be very exciting, and that excitement can turn into frustration very quickly when you have a crash. So I would recommend having multiple cultures of either moina or Daphnia going at once, having multiple green water cultures going at once. And if that sounds like a lot to handle and juggle and balance, it kind of is. So if you're not up for that, maybe don't get roped into the thought of the Daphnia and moina direction.
Yeah. Or just know you can buy it from Phillips Fishworks and you don't have to mess with it.
Yeah. And it's not. I do have lots of customers that will just buy moina and Daphnia like once a month to give to their fish as a treat, and they're not actually trying to grow it on their own. But if you've got a whole, basement full of, if you've got 30 or 50 tanks in your basement, what's another little shelf of rack dedicated to a couple buckets of green water going, and maybe a couple 20-gallon tanks of Daphnia and moina going? That's pretty feasible, and that would be enough. But if you really want to keep it long-term going and you've only got one little jar to work with, you're probably going to have some crash at some point and then totally be gone. Now, if you really like to tinker with it, and you've got a bunch of jars going, that's, it's whatever you want to make out of it. I hate to see people getting frustrated and upset about it, because it is a live animal. We're experimenting with so many variables that we can't even really understand that. And you can take advice from me and take advice from all kinds of people, but you're going to have the best luck is through experimentation on your own with all of it, not just the green water and Daphnia and moina.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for number 4, I'm going to answer an email about questions with scuds and eating plants. This is a common question. Kara had to step out real quick, and we've already filmed the outro, so she's going to reappear for the outro, but she's actually gone at this moment. So, okay. Here's a question from a wonderful customer here. I had a 10-gallon tank that was 2 years old, high-tech, went on vacation, came back to a ton of Glodophora. I may be mispronouncing that. It's a type of algae or plant. It's very feather-like thin. It grows similar looking to filamentous algae. Tried for years to get rid of it, but failed. I converted the tank over to a low-tech tank. Vacuumed out all the mulm. I later learned that was a mistake. Maybe a mistake, maybe not a mistake. There are situations where vacuuming out large amounts of mulm might be beneficial. Maybe, if you're doing a whole tank reset and you're adding, layers of sand and stuff, vacuuming out a lot of that mulm, I wouldn't say that's definitely a mistake. Sometimes it's good if you've got huge amounts of mulm. Added a sand cap and planted new plants. Ooh, okay. So I don't want to say red flag in a negative way, but something that sticks out, added new plants. That's something we want to hold on to in our mind. I only had one fish, which was a zebra danio, and some snails. So one fish, some snails. Love zebra danios. They're so cool. They're so fast. I wanted to add microfauna, so I ordered a bag of bugs and added one bag of bugs to the tank. And a few days later, after I rebuilt the tank, so we put in sand, totally redid the tank, put plants in. A few days later, you added the bag of bugs. Within a few days, within the next few days, my plants were decimated. Crap! Scuds, you scoundrels! How dare you destroy all those plants in a couple of days? With it, sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you. This is a pattern I've seen over and over again, and I already see where this is going just based on the sheer volume of dealing with this type of thing. Okay, all the leaves were being chewed off and the stems were left. Took me a while to connect it to the scuds. At least I think it was the scuds. I know little about scuds except for they're good at keeping the tank clean and water clarity. Yeah, I mean, they can clean up waste sometimes. They're going to eat dead things. They're going to, if you're feeding a lot, they're going to get the food out of the cracks and crevices that the fish miss. So let's look at these sequences here. Rebuild the tank, put a bunch of new plants in. A few days later, so what's a few? 3-4 days or so? Add the bag of bugs. And one bag of bugs is like 15 to 20 adult scuds. There'll be some baby scuds in there as well. So that's the scud content typically. And then a few more days later, the plants are being decimated. So from adding the plants to total plant decimation is like a weekish, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but it's a week time frame. Okay, let's keep reading. I still have that tank. I didn't do anything else to it. Waiting for my new tank to come in so I can replace this tank. I currently have one Danio, two coolie loaches, one black coolie loach. I now just set up a 55-gallon tank. It's about 4 days old, no fish, one bladder snail left over from another tank I had that this one replaced. My question is, how can I prevent the same thing from happening in this tank? I want to add microfauna, including scuds, but I don't want them to eat all my plants. We don't want them to eat all your plants. I understand that for sure. I see plenty of little snail poop they can eat. I'm going to add 3 zebra danios to the tank this weekend, wait a couple of weeks, then add 3 more, continue to stock slowly. Can I add a bag of bugs to the 55-gallon with only 3 danios in there? Should I wait until I have more fish? Or is there a fish I should start with before the danios to keep the scud population in check? The driftwood I used for the tank came from a used fish tank I bought. I kept it wet for a couple of months before using it. I rinsed off a lot of the dead leaves and other gunk. There's still lots of gunk on the surface. That's what snails, shrimp, and scuds eat, right? Okay. I've included photos of the 55-gallon tank, the 10-gallon tank, the plants being chewed, the stems remaining. Does this look like the work of the scuds? Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this email because it gives me a chance to talk about a common problem, a common misconception, perhaps. So again, our timeline is in the original 10-gallon tank. I put the plants in, and basically a week or so later, they're decimated. In the middle there, I put some scuds in. So we put 20 scuds in this tank, and a few days later, all your plants are being totally eaten. And from the picture, I'm looking at the picture, and there's definitely a lot of damage. And it looks like in some of them, clear chomp, chomp, chomp looks totally eaten up. That looks like it's melting away. Lots of all the leaves off the stem plants, they look totally gone. I'm seeing something interesting here. At first glance, I'm thinking a lot of, okay, so here's another thing that can happen. Let's paint more of this picture. You have a brand new tank, you take plants that may have been grown out of the water, or maybe parts of it were grown out of the water, and or even if it was grown underwater, you're putting it into a brand new environment with a different set of water parameters. That can be kind of a shock period. You just stick some roots or just some stems down that aren't even rooted, but maybe there's a few roots there. You stick them down in some sand. That sand is brand new sand. It doesn't have any microbiome established in it. There's typically, with many plants, there's relationships between the roots and bacteria and different things to have nutrient exchanges, and that's how they actually, that's how they're feeding down at the root level. So a lot of times they're receiving the sun, they're using the sun, they're producing root exudates, and that feeds bacteria, and then the bacteria die, or the bacteria also produce some kind of waste that the plant directly takes up. There's lots of different kinds of relationships with roots and bacteria and fungus and different things. So I don't want to speak specifically about the plants I'm seeing in this picture on what they're doing, but typically the process of you stick the stem in the ground or even the roots into the sand, that there is a delay period of becoming established. And during that delay period, there can be some growth at first, but that's usually like some emergency growth. And the growth you're seeing is not actually from the nutrients it's absorbing, but it's kind of some energy left within the root structure, or rather left within the plant itself. It has some energy to grow some leaves or some emergency growth to try to bring in some extra sun or capture some extra sun to get this process kick-started. So that's kind of a general idea. I'm not speaking specifically about specific plants. So what can happen is, and this can happen as soon as a week or so, a weekish after planting these, you can have some mass die-off, some mass melt. And a lot of times, if you are doing this a very quick process, you set up your tank, you put the plants in right away, you put in a bag of bugs pretty soon, you've got scuds, and then all of a sudden you're having some melt or die-off, and your scuds are getting blamed. So that's why we labeled this "Scuds are always to blame," because time and time again, especially in brand new planted aquariums, especially with newer people into the hobby, where they maybe don't have a ton of experience with plants, maybe they haven't seen this before. But what's happening is the plants are melting and going to be dying off anyways on some level, and scuds will be on sitting up on the plants. Maybe they're chewing on the dead part or not, but they're getting blamed for that. And maybe they've chewed on a little bit of that, the edges of where it's dying. A lot of times there is a lot of bacteria and microorganisms growing on that decaying part, and the scuds chewing and actually eating that biofilm or eating those microorganisms more so than even the live, even the dead plant itself. They're actually wanting those microorganisms that are feeding on that decaying portion of that plant. So a lot of times, and another thing is, if this was some kind of established tank, 2 years old, now I know you reset it, but I think there was some mulm and some other things probably in there. I know you got rid of a lot of the mulm, but it sounds like, if this was some kind of established aquarium, there was probably already some microorganisms in there in a microbiome. And if you had a 10-gallon tank, you put in a bag of bug, you're talking 20 adult scuds in a couple of days, that population can't physically eat that much vegetation anyways. So when I'm seeing the damage in the picture, the scuds cannot be responsible for that much damage. A lot of this is melting, but I am seeing in this picture some in the background, and I'll show this. Looks like something has, like, a if you were to see like a caterpillar chewing off some leaf. That looks like, I see why you're saying it looks like something's been chewing on it, because I'm looking at it and it does look like something's been chewing on that. And even in the picture, I can't tell what I'm looking at. Maybe some pieces of that floating around. And this almost reminds me of something I've dealt with in the past. This reminds me of caddisfly damage, caddisfly larva damage. And as I'm looking in this picture, I can almost see in a couple of spots what look like parts of that plant that's been chewed up, folded in half and stuck on different places. And you see up on the glass up there to the left by the snail, and a couple other little places, there is fragments of leaves kind of here and there of the plant that's missing from the chewed up. And so a caddisfly is actually a moth-looking little thing. It's like a little tiny moth. It's not like a fly you think of, like a house fly or a fruit fly flying around. It's kind of a moth. lay their eggs in aquatic environments, and their larva will it breathes there, but it will go down into the water and it will cut off and chew up leaves, and it will make its little house. It makes a little like cocoon looking thing, and it lives in this thing and carries it on its back and cruises around in the aquarium and at the top. Usually they're at the top, but they can swim down to chew up little, and they will carve out little cutouts of leaves, and they will fold that up and make it their little home. They also, if you have duckweed, they love duckweed, I think, above all. So if you had duckweed in there, they would be eating that. But I have in the past experienced massive plant loss from caddisfly larvae. And if I had duckweed in there, they would consume that duckweed. And I think they are consuming the plant as well, but they also make a little house. It's like a little cocoon. So you'll see little sections of that leaf folded up and stuck to places, and there's actually a little larva in there. It's like a little, looks like a little miniature waxworm. It's a little grub looking thing, and I almost suspect that that is going on here based off solely off this picture. I have not talked to this individual over the phone or anything, but that is what I'm seeing possibly. And if you were to look around, you should see little tiny folded up pieces of those chewed off leaves. But this chewed up damage, when I see scuds, plant damage from scuds, first of all, you need a massive population of scuds that have been in there a while. Even a massive population of scuds, they're going to eat lots of other stuff first. So if this was a tank that has been around a while, now I know you just reset it, but again, that's such a small population of scuds that you've got so much biofilm and other things in there. They're going to chew on that first. They really only resort to eating like plant, like to chew the leaves off all these plants. Like you would have to have just thousands and thousands of scuds in that tank, and you would see this. You don't see this kind of damage overnight. I don't care what anyone says. You really don't. Not from not from 20 to 30 scuds. Even if you were to drop 100 scuds into that tank, 1,000 scuds into that tank, they would not do that kind of damage overnight. And again, you've got a fish in there, and I bet you don't see scuds all over those plants. So you've got one Danio in there. That one Danio will definitely pick on the scuds, and the scuds will be hiding, and the scuds will be able to establish a population. So don't worry about that. But what I'm seeing is a lot of melt. So you've got new plants, you're going to have some natural melt, but there does seem to be some serious damage after really looking at this that is, I wouldn't just attribute to melt on that back plant above the big chunk of lava rock or whatever that red rock is. There is some, looks like a caterpillar was chewing. Well, that caddisfly larva will have similar, because I remember on now they will eat hornwort too, but when I had some salvinia or some bigger broadleaf things, that caddisfly would take little cutouts, and then I would see those little pieces of that same plant folded up in little, looks like a little like capsule of that plant, and they will be stuck somewhere, and they will live in there, and they actually move around, and they will be at the up at the top, and they'll float. And if you take one of those and squeeze it, you'll see that little worm poke out. I bet you have caddisflies just based off this one little picture I'm looking at. Let me look at the others. But again, I'm seeing some like hair algae or filamentous algae within that moss. The scuds are going to eat that filamentous algae before they would ever touch those stem plants. I know that. I mean, that's been my experience over and over again. And even that, you hadn't had them in there long enough to do any kind of damage at all. I mean, that's my honest truth, not just trying to sell scuds. That's what I've seen over and over and over again. I know there are lots of nightmare scenarios that people can come up with where scuds can do some damage to plants, but it's always with a very large population of scuds. They've been there a while. The tank's been cleared out of food. That's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing some melt, and I'm also seeing potentially something else that I did not see before when I emailed you back in response. Caddisfly larva can do some serious plant damage pretty quickly, and it will do this if you, especially if you have quite a few of them, and you can have a pretty big outbreak. I've dealt with that in the past. I've not dealt with that for a year or two. So where would those caddisflies come from? Well, they could come from outside, although it's pretty chilly, so they probably didn't come from outside. It would be unlikely for some to fly in your house, and that would be pretty unlikely. But the larvas can come in on plants. I've seen that many times in the past, because you'll get these big greenhouses, or um, anyone potentially pulling plants from the wild or at a greenhouse. It's not uncommon. I don't know that uncommon's not the right word. I wouldn't say it's common actually, but it's possible, very possible, for there to be populations of caddisflies having problems, outbreaks at greenhouses where they're able to reproduce. And if they're a company worth anything at all, they will get that under control very quickly. And you can't fault them for potentially having a problem from time to time. But if that is what's happening, you'll want to physically remove all those larvae as soon as you see one. You got to The only way to deal with this is manual removal. You got to remove the larva. You got to remove, if they've been in that little cocoon thing and they've planted it somewhere in the tank, you've got to remove that. If you see like the caddisflies themselves, you'll want to physically remove those. And if you're just vigilant after doing that for a period of time, eventually you'll get them all. They do lay eggs. I don't know what their eggs exactly look like, but they can go and lay more eggs. I don't know for sure. I'm sure it's a species thing if they're laying it on the edge or actually down in the water, but you just got to get a handle on it. And once you think you got them all, you got to watch out, because the little caddisfly larvae are very small when they start out, and then they get real big into a grub, or at least the ones we've dealt with. So the 55-gallon tank looks absolutely awesome. Looks like you got a bunch of plants in there. Looks great. You could put a bag of bugs in there now. A 50-gallon tank could handle many bags of bugs. If you wanted to put, 2 or 3 in there, that wouldn't be too much too fast. And again, once you get some fish in there, zebra danios work great. They've got a big enough mouth to chew on scuds. They're certainly fast enough to get scuds, and they're eating monsters just like all the rest. So another good scud hunter. And again, I would go your zebra Daniel route, because that's kind of your plan, and you've got a plan for what you want to do. But just for other people, swordtails are great, platies are great. Guppies can be really good too. Really small Indler guppies, hybrid mixes. Their mouths can be pretty small, so getting an adult scud, but still they keep those populations at bay. Um, bettas are awesome. Any kind of the loaches are good. Uh, Corridoras work great. The clown loaches, again, like mentioned earlier, are awesome at eating scuds. What else eats scuds? Anything will eat a scud, as long as it can fit in the mouth. Things that maybe aren't so great are like little micro rasboras, or tiny little fish that are microscopic, that aren't a whole lot bigger than a scud. They're going to have trouble controlling a scud population. And yeah, so the 55-gallon tank looks beautiful. If this whole caddisfly larva thing that I'm imagining up possibly being a scenario for you is happening, that's something you're going to get under control, because they will go into this tank too. The larvae themselves won't travel from tank to tank, but if you get a bunch of flies eventually hatching out, eventually you'll have, if the caddisfly thing's happening, you will have some of those moths or those caddisflies flying around, and they can spread that way and lay eggs in this tank. So you want to get a handle on this. Otherwise, if it was all melt and I'm just using my imagination, it's likely that several of these plants here, some are going to do really well right off the bat, some are not going to do well right off the bat, some are going to melt, some are not. That's part of this whole planted tank thing. The idea that there's like bulletproof methods and that you're not going to fail at all is kind of a fantasy land. There are definitely a lot of great methods. There's going to be some plants that don't do that great, and part of having a variety of plants in buying a big plant package, looks like you've got a ton of different plants. Some are going to do really well, some are not. Some are going to melt back. And if you put scuds in there and the scuds are on the plant chewing on the dead part because they're eating a bunch of little microorganisms there, or physically chewing up the dead part of the leaf itself, they a lot of times get, scuds are always to blame. Scuds get blamed for a lot of problems, and sometimes they can cause problems. But again, just to lay out the scenario where they cause a problem would be very large populations of scuds and no predators. The population of scuds don't usually get that big. They can't really get that big if there are predators in the tank. Scud predators would be fish. If there are no fish in the tank, that population can grow and grow and grow. Now, what's happening is you're feeding some scuds, and a scud, let's say you've got a scud tank and there are no fish in there. And sorry, this is long, but this deserves attention. You've got scuds in there eating food you're putting in, eating some leaf litter perhaps, eating little microorganisms. As that population gets so massive that they've cleaned all those surfaces off, they've eaten all the biofilm, they've eaten everything they can eat, they've eaten all the microalgae, they've eaten all the filamentous algae, and all that's left are these big chunky plants that they don't particularly love to chew on, but if push comes to shove, they will. They'll eat the plant before they eat their own. Yeah, that's true. Definitely true. So, if you were to put a couple bag of bugs in here and you get a couple fish, and couple weeks later you get a couple more fish, there is no threat to those plants from the scuds. Now, if there are caddisflies in your system, that might be a threat, and the threat of, hey, it's a brand new tank, the sand is literally sterilized, and there's no established microbiome. Now, the logs and things and whatever else you've put in there that's alive, that's going to definitely get that beneficial bacteria and little microorganisms. Putting some bag of bugs in there is going to introduce more microorganisms. That's going to help the system overall. But understand, and I'm sure you already know this, so I'm not trying to educate you on something maybe you don't already know, or you already know, but um, it takes time for those plants and things to really establish, and the environment that's going to be super awesome to grow scuds and microorganisms and super awesome to grow tons and tons of healthy plants is not what you have right now. Now you have to start and you have to get through some of the ugly stages, but if you've ever watched some of these other there's plenty of YouTubers out there doing planted tanks, and if you watch them very long, you can catch on that the sweet spot for planted tanks is 6 months to a year is when they maybe start to actually do something awesome. But those first couple of months can be very rocky. You're going to have some plants doing awesome, some plants dying. The trick on you is you set this up. It's brand new. I know this is brand new. I can see some bubbles, in the glass there potentially. Like, yeah, I know you just set it up. You said you just set it up. And it's going to look so, the water's crystal clear, the plants you just put in, they're growing already. That's what typically happens. A lot of that's emergency growth. That's not necessarily growth because the plant's really happy in a environment that's established and doing really well. A lot of that first boom of growth is, I'm in an emergency state and all I know to do is to try to grow to capture more light to start the process. So as it goes through some of these stages, what happens, and I keep repeating myself, but whatever. If you don't like the repeat, get off the channel. What's happening over and over again is we set up the new tank, there's a bunch of explosive growth, everything looks awesome, then there's usually some kind of crash because the water chemistry is going, whoa, 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 and scuds get blamed, always get blamed. Sometimes they're to blame, but rarely for these massive plant kills where I bought a bag of bugs, I put it in there, and a week later they ate all my plants. I can assure you that's not the case. I can assure you because scuds aren't capable of consuming. That low number of scuds are physically not capable of consuming that much vegetation in that short amount of time. And scuds are not reproducing that quickly. Scuds on a super good day are reproducing every 3 to 4 weeks. You put them in a new environment with different water and a whole new thing in an environment that isn't necessarily ready to grow tons of baby scuds. The sand is sterile a couple days before. You put the scuds in there. Even if she's got some babies loaded up and they're ready to come out, ready to go, that environment may not be prime for those baby tiny scuds. So your success rate from growing, okay, we hatched out 30 baby scuds. Are those baby scuds even going to really find the right food to grow up into a adult healthy super scud? So if you put a bag of bugs in there and you're putting 20 plus scuds in there, there's usually 15 to 20 adult scuds. There's always a ton of little baby scuds in there and some other seed shrimp, copepods, other little micro creatures too. They cannot, in a couple of weeks even, have probably one generation. So this idea that you're going to put a culture in there and there's going to be this monster population of scuds within a short time and it's going to kill all your plants, not even possible. But I'm also seeing little bits of that plant looks like folded up and stuck in various places in the background. What is this piece of leaf the same color as the plant on the background? Well, and what is this thing over on this stem randomly? All the leaves are gone off the stem, but there's what looks like one little leaf. What looks like a folded leaf to me, and that looks like a caddisfly larva, if I've ever seen one, and I have. So I would really investigate that. I bet you that's what's happening. I bet you that's what's happening. And if it's not, I'd be wrong, and I've been wrong so many times, I don't even care about being wrong. So that's fine, but I bet you it's caddisfly larva. And I hope we can dive into this, and I hope you let me know. I'm going to send you an email about it now. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this email. I really appreciate you sending me this. This is very fascinating. I like trying to solve some of these problems and getting to the bottom of this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the emails. I really like going over the emails and trying to dive into some of these problems. I don't know everything about everything, but I know a lot about Scuds, Daphnia, Moina, Greenwater, stuff like that. So if it's something I know about and I feel comfortable answering, send in your emails and I will possibly read them. I say on the air, but I don't know if on the air means live because we are not live.
Right. I think it's cool though, like covering these this way, because sometimes it just needs a deeper dive rather than, a paragraph.
Yeah, we get a lot of emails and they're complicated, and
or they're the same question.
It's the same questions over and over again. And I just feel like answering via video is a good way to share it with lots of other people, because I have seen this lots of these scenarios come at me over and over again. And maybe if you get that information ahead, you'll understand what's happening and maybe not run into as many problems as you are running into.
Yeah.
And where do they find out more, Kara?
phillipsfishworks.com.
Right. Check out the new logo. Looking hot.
Sign up for the newsletter.
Yep. Down at the bottom, newsletter. If you've got questions, you can submit them on the bulletin page. The Benthic Bulletin page. You can check that out. Plus, all the Friday 4s are under the Friday 4 tab on the website. So thank you for tuning in. And if you like it, do the things you're supposed to do if you like it. If not, don't hit that thumbs down. That makes me sad. Right. Love you guys.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.